Oh, we're on. Hi. We're live. Welcome. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever time you're watching this. If you're not watching this live right now on Facebook, because why would you? Uh, whether that's an indictment of this whole live stream concept or Facebook in general, I will leave that up to you. Uh, Thank you for joining us for the weekly SilviaFindings live stream. My name is Mark. I'll be your live stream presenter today. Um, how's it going? Everything okay? Everybody doing good? You all get your projects going. Everybody's happy. This is supposed to be an Ask Me Anything thing, and we have got well, I got two good questions because we did a like. I'm rambling. Okay, calm down. We sent out a, as we do every week in our social medias on, Instagram and Twitter and did we do Twitter? I don't remember seeing it there. Anyway, we sent a thing. Hey, ask me anything. This is what we're doing this week, and I got two questions. Well, I got a bunch of questions, but two that I thought were appropriate, and one that I wasn't asked specifically about this, but I was asked. I get asked a lot, so I'm just going to go with that. But I might wait a few. Hey Gary, good to see you. But I don't know. Maybe I'll wait a few minutes before I really start diving into things, seeing if anybody else decides to jump in and ask some questions. So if you have any questions, I see there's right now there's only two of you in the thing, which is probably Gary and Lise, probably staff. So woohoo, we're so popular. We're a growing concern, as they say. Shows are starting up again. We did we did 3 shows back-to-back weekends. Not last weekend, but the 3 previous weekends we did shows. Port Alberni, Victoria, and here in Vancouver at the PNE, big one. We have another one coming up in Calgary next weekend, I think it is. I don't even know what day it is today. It was like the 19th or something? 18th? Whatever today is. Yeah. So coming up next week, I guess we'll be in Calgary, and then shows are starting up again. Yay! So we'll start seeing if we can answer your questions face to face instead of this slightly impersonal way. Okay, whatever. We've been on for 5 minutes or something. So I'm just going to go into the questions that I've already been given. And I'm going to do a couple rants about a couple things. I'm not gonna talk about shipping and postage because it just sucks. It's a mess. Everywhere is a mess. Logistics are bad. For some reason, people are just so over the whole pandemic thing. It's like, if we pretend it doesn't exist, maybe everything will go back to normal, right? Wrong! It doesn't work that way. Viruses don't care about your mask mandates or lifting them or anything. They only care about propagating and infecting as many people as they can. So, whatever. We won't learn because human beings are dumb in general. Generally speaking, some of us are smart. I don't know that I would lump myself in to the smart bunch, but generally we're just dumb. We wreck the planet, we wreck things, we wreck each other, and we're a mess. But now that that uplifting part is done, wow. Okay, the first question that I got, let's just jump right into it. And this one, I've actually got this a couple times, but this one was specifically asked. And I'm going to try to do this without any snark, which is difficult for me because I'm kind of a snarky guy. But the question was, why do you ship? Because this person specifically ordered a couple of, the little settings, these little, just a couple of those little things. And they said, why do you ship in such big boxes? Because we ship everything in this box, 4 by 4 by 6 inches, or in centimeters, 15 by 10 by 10. And they went on and on. It's wasteful, it's thing, it's this, it's that, and also their rant, they were Canadian customers, so their rant was, if you ship in a box, it has to go parcel post, and parcel post in Canada is a lot more expensive than regular mail, right? And the reason why we don't do this, I mean, if it's jump rings or some wire, like a coil of wire, some chains maybe, something flat-ish, then yeah, we'll put it in one of these little, padded envelopes and mail that. But the reason why we don't generally is this. This is a return that came back from a customer. I covered their address so they won't be embarrassed in case, but they're never going to watch this, so I don't know why I care. Anyway, they sent us a return because the setting was too deep for her stones. So, we take returns for that kind of stuff. You can't tell, on the website, we give you the dimensions of the things, but until you actually physically put your stone in the setting, it's not always easy to tell if it's going to fit well or not. So we've got a pretty chill return policy as far as that, kind of stuff goes. Anyway, we shipped them to her in a box like this, and she returned them to us in a padded envelope like this. And when they came back, and I'm just gonna switch this up and oops, do this kind of thing so you can see. So this is about the shape that they're supposed to look like, but look at that prong. Doing. This one snapped right off. These ones are pushed down, bent down, right? But anyway, but this is at least the correct shape. The other one, which might have, I guess, gone sideways at some point, just totally demolished, right? I mean, these are unusable, unsellable. So this is why we don't put anything in these padded envelope, because if you ship them in a padded envelope like this, they're going to get mangled, they're going to get destroyed. And it's just not worth the angst, because, you're going to get them, you're going to say, what the hell, these are all messed up. You're going to want to ship them back. And at this point, I mean, you may as well keep them, right? And just, melt them down for scrap or something, because it's pretty useless to us. Yeah. Anyway. The other thing is, let me just make this a little bigger, a little more. Couple of other reasons, right? So we have a system where if it's a little tiny thing, right, we will staple it to the paper, fold it up with one of our postcards, and if you wedge this in the box diagonally, and when you close this up, this is super secure. This went all the way to, where did it go originally? Somewhere, I don't know, it went somewhere into the States, and it came all the way back, and it's like still, perfect, beautiful, and the other reason is the labels that we print, we have a label printer, are 4 by 6, and these boxes are exactly the perfect size for those things. So of course, that's why we do it that way, and that is come back, look at me, there we go. So that's my rant about why do we ship in such big boxes. The other question I got was somebody who ordered some of those, she ordered a bunch of the jewelry findings, just the settings that you're meant to solder onto other things. We've got a bunch of them. We've got some rounds, some ovals, some that are designed for cabochon, some that are designed for faceted stones, and it's just the setting, just the the setting that you're meant to solder onto something else. So there's no loops, there's no things, whatever. Except there is. Let me just turn this around again. Oh, sorry. Production values are impeccable, right? So she was like, "Why did you send me these? All have a post on them. Did you like cut them wrong when you cut them off a tree or something, or what's up with that?" And well, I mean, the reason is we have a series of different kinds of settings, and this is just one big, Tiffany style prong setting. And we've got little cabochon settings, cute little things. You can find them on the website under jewelry settings. But we also have some rings, a couple different styles of rings that have a hole in them. I don't know if you can see that hole there. And that hole matches that peg. And the idea is you can get one of each of these, and that just holds it in place easily if you're going to solder those together, right? That's probably really big for that size ring as an example to look at, but so that's what they're there for. So, I mean, my suggestion was, and I don't know why this was so hard for her, but, just cut that off and file it down, and then you can solder it to whatever you want, I mean, it's there to help you solder them to the rings that we had designed them for, but you don't have to use them for that, right? So, and I'm sorry that we make you go through the extra step of the indignity of cutting off that little piece of metal, but there it is. That's what that's for. And those were the only 2 questions that anybody sent me. So, it's not straight. So, if you have any other questions, throw them up here now. Let me think of what the other question I get all the time, or the questions I get every day, are always about custom work, custom designs. And I've gone over it so often, but it might be a good, point to do this again here. Maybe somebody can watch this who has the question but hasn't asked, or hasn't, researched it. Because despite the fact that all the information is on the websites, nobody seems to read that, stuff. So I guess it's just easier to say, hey, what is up with this thing? Or, type a query into the web chat feature, or message us on Etsy messaging or whatever. But basically, the answer is almost always yeah. No matter what you have in your mind, we can do it. We can custom make just about anything. Limited only by physics and and your budget, I guess. And also, size, right? If you're just, doing a simple piece of jewelry, the flasks that we use, I think the biggest ones they have at the factory are like 6 inches across, I mean, which is, pretty huge. But if you consider that normally, and forgive me if you're not familiar with the lost wax casting process, or process for our American watchers, listeners, whatever. Oh boy. I lived 24 years in the US, so you figure that I would have been over thing. I still say process. Sorry. Never learned true American. Anyway, neither here nor there. What was I saying? Okay, so if you're not familiar with the lost wax casting process, I'm not going to go over it now. But there's a base with a wax rod that goes up from the middle of the base, and then you make a bunch of wax models. And if we're doing a custom thing, we'll just design it with a CAD program, right? We'll do a 3D model of the piece that you want. Once you approve it, once you say, yeah, great, looks good, then we'll do a print. We'll 3D print it. Oh, you see that orange thing here? right? That's our 3D printer that we have here at the office. We have a much bigger one at the factory that has much higher resolution, works a little bit faster. Just, it's amazing watching it work. I think there's a video somewhere on a website or something that has that. Well, maybe not. Anyway, it's very cool. So we'll 3D print a castable wax resin hybrid material stuff that we melt a little connection between the wax rod that goes up through the middle of the base to the thing, and then we just build up a whole bunch of them. So if we make like 30 pieces, 30 copies of a piece, we can melt 30 copies of this to the thing and make like a tree. It looks like a tree. And then the flask is like just a steel tube that goes over the top of that. There's a bunch of different ways you can do that. And some of them are just solid steel. The ones we use are perforated, they have holes in them, and then there's a sleeve that goes over that gets vaporized off. But then once the steel tube, the flask is over the top of that, then you fill it up with this material that's like plaster. It's called investment, but it's like plaster. It dries pretty quickly. Well, you've only got about, depending on the brand of the investment, you might have 8-10 minutes, maybe 12 minutes of working with it before it starts to harden. But it'll be pretty not hard, but stiff, and it won't move anymore after about 20 minutes or so. Normally you let it rest for an hour or so just to be sure, and so most of the excess water is evaporated out of the top of that. And then you take that piece once it's solidified and you pull the base off, because the base is normally made of rubber, and then you put it in a kiln and you fire it at there's a whole firing cycle that you do it, but it takes a couple hours, like 6 or 8 hours depending on the brand of investment. And when that happens, the investment becomes super hard, and the inside wax melts out, which is why it's called lost wax casting, and the wax vaporizes out. It's pretty smoky, pretty gross thing, but that's how it works. And then when the flask is still hot, like 1,000 degrees or something, you pour the molten metal into it, and the metal goes in. There's a couple different ways you can do it. Centrifugal force, you might have seen little spinny casters where they have it's like a machine where you have the crucible and you put it in there and you put the flask in there, and then you let go and it spins around and the molten metal shoots into the mold. Probably it's way more boring because less chance of things going flying. But the way we do it in the factory, there's a vacuum caster, and the flask goes into this machine that pulls the vacuum in the bottom, and then you pour molten metal into the top of that, and it's all measured, of course, to fill up the thing. And vacuum pulls the molten metal down into the bottom of the flask, fills up all those void spaces from all those wax models that have been melted out, vaporized out, and doesn't take long, couple minutes for it to cool down to the point where the metal is solid again. And then you take that and you dunk it in water, and it boils and bubbles and makes all kinds of noises, and most of the investment starts to break away, and then you can pull out the tree, and then you have your tree of molten, or not molten anymore, your tree of solid metal things. And then you got to clean that off, and then clip all the pieces off, and you're left with some scrap metal, the sprue and the button, and fancy words for the excess pieces. And then you can take that and recycle that, and melt that down for next time for something else. Yeah, but then so then you have many pieces. If we're doing a custom one, what we'll do is we'll print one of your custom pieces, and then we'll just add it to the top of whatever tree we're casting that day. So that's why it's so relatively so inexpensive to do it the way that we do it, because we're piggybacking on top of a normal production procedure that happens anyway. It's not like we're working on only your piece, and it's there are labor costs associated with just one piece that doesn't get amortized over multiple pieces. If we're casting 30 or 50 pieces, all of the expense of that casting procedure can be divided up across all those 50 pieces or whatever. That's why the production pieces are, so much less expensive than a custom piece, than an individual custom piece. But it's still way less expensive. Our custom, work way less expensive than it would be with a traditional jeweler, because normally a traditional jeweler will carve the wax piece, or if they do, the CAD, version where they do that thing, whatever, they're still spending hours and hours, doing some work on that thing, and they're going to charge you accordingly. Bench fee for an average. Well, I don't know anymore. Used to be, in my day, a bench jeweler made good money, $60, $80 an hour. Now, man, I bet it's not even close to that. I bet it's not, because those kind of jobs, when it seems like when those jewelers die or retire, there's not a lot of people taking over those places again, because so much of this is becoming, automated and less hands-on. Which is it's a double-edged sword. It's a shame, because you don't get the oh boy, I'm going to sound like a real hippie right now, but you don't get the energy of the person that's working on your piece in the piece. You don't get that mojo that you get when your thing is cast. But it's way less expensive, and probably as good or better than it would be. Anyway, neither here nor there. And that's how the custom things works. So we can do pretty much whatever you want, and prices are on the website and everything. But basically, for sterling silver items that are under 5 grams, which is a lot of things, most things end up being under 5, unless it's a big, crazy big pendant for a monster cabochon that you've got, or a giant heavy ring or something. Most will end up being under 5 grams. And the price for that is only $68. Canadian dollars. So US, that's like, I think I did it once, forget off the top of my head, like something like $52 or something, or around $50. So for around $50 US, you can get a custom piece. You have a stone that you cut, that's some wacky shape that you can't find a setting for, because you're never going to find a setting for most wacky shapes. If you're a lapidary or a stone cutter, or if you're travel to gem shows and you're looking at cut stones, and you see some stones that you just love, but they're not standard shapes or sizes. That's a problem. But the custom is an affordable way to do that. So with sterling items, it's $68 Canadian. That includes the 3D model, the 3D design, which normally just on its own, if you just want to do the 3D design, is $25. And if it's something that we think is probably going to be more than 5 grams, like if it's something big, we'll normally make you just do that first. $25. We'll do the design. We'll figure out, because then once we have the 3D model, the program that we designed the 3D model in, you very easily calculate the volume, and by extension the weight and the cost of the piece. And the one that we use, the program that most of our designers use, at the end of the thing, it calculates a chart, that will say, based on this model in sterling silver, it'll be this much weight, in 10 karat gold is this much weight, in 9 karat gold is this much weight, 14 karat this much weight, blah blah blah, and they produces a whole table that tells you how much it would be. So it's very easy for us, if we design something, to quote you a price in all kinds of different alloys. Having said that, for gold designs, the 3D model, the fee to do that is $35. And the reason why it's more expensive is it's kind of, it's not obvious, but it makes sense. When you're designing for sterling, there are a lot of shortcuts that you can take with the structural elements, right, of the piece. You have like, places that you can just fill in, because, a 1/10 of a gram of sterling silver is not really that expensive. So if you add a 1/10 here, a 1/10 there, a little bit, it's not going to radically change the cost of your piece. Whereas with gold, I mean, you can't really take those kind of shortcuts, those design shortcuts. So you have to spend a lot of extra time making sure that all the you know, the outward design stuff all is ostensibly the same, but you know, the inside edges, maybe the inside of the shoulders of the rings maybe are scooped out a little more. You know, the framework of the seat might be a little more defined, right? A little less filled in, you know. As much void space as you can make in gold items, the less, you know, weight it is, and ultimately you know, it ends up bringing the cost down. We can do it, and we have done it, just ported silver design into gold, but it ends up being, you know, generally a lot more expensive. Definitely more than the extra $10 that it would cost you just to have a design for gold in the first place. But neither here nor there. Yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really have anything else. Those were the burning questions that I got. I'm trying to think of what other questions some people might have. The only other question I get pretty often is what tools, you know, what are the most important tools? And I did a whole video on that. I think, yeah, I did. So clearly, whoever's asking these questions aren't looking us up on YouTube and seeing what things we have. But I always say, like, the most important tool that you can get is a good caliper. Where's my calipers? You know what they are, calipers. You know what? I'll get one. These. Okay. And the reason why this is important is because, boy, I'm going to suffer more ire from stone sellers. Stone sellers are interesting. They're an interesting bunch. Notwithstanding the whole price, is it worth it, is, you know, the value things, which I've been doing this jewelry business thing for 25 years. Thanks, Lise. I knew we had a specific episode that was just about tools. I specifically remember that. Anyway, all the years I've been in the jewelry business, I've never been able to quantify how people value stones. You know, I've seen two stones that were, to me, and to I suspect most mortals, were indistinguishable from each other. You know, but one is like 10 times the price of the other. And, you know, if somebody's willing to pay it, then that's what it's worth, right? Okay, I'm not going to argue with you. If it's me, 10 times out of 10, I'm going to buy the less expensive one. You know, unless it's something, maybe the cuts are really janky or something. But, you know, I mean, I'm savvy enough to look at that kind of stuff, you know. For me, the biggest thing is the shape of the pavilion, if it's a faceted stone, and the shape of the cabs, you know, the edges, if it's a cabochon. Boy, because it does seem like most stone cutters are not really jewelers, which I don't get it. How can you know, cut stones for 30 years and never receive feedback from a jeweler that says, dude, you know, you're making your pavilions way too big or too wide, or you know, why didn't you dome this cab all the way down to the edge? You know, yeah, I think the bezels I've got to use on this are 5 inches tall because you have this crazy thick cabochon and the edges are flat. Anyway, whatever, neither here nor there. Although I could do a whole episode only about the things that I hate about stones. Some stones. Anyway, so that's why you need to have a good pair of these, because stone dealers will almost never put correct dimensions in their listings for their stones. And I noticed this especially on Etsy. A lot of stone dealers there, a lot of people selling stones there, and the stones are always 9 by 11 or 10 by 12 or 14 by 16 or 4 by 6. But then when you get them, they're never that exact size. There's some, you know, 10.3 by, 11.7, so they're never exactly the dimensions that they say they are. If they're selling it by the carat weight will be exactly accurate because that's how they're selling it, by the weight. But yeah, otherwise they don't care. They just want to sell the stones, and it's easier to say, oh, it's 7 by 10 instead of saying 7.32 by 9.87. Right? They'll round it up or down to the nearest whole number to make the listing more appealing. Right? Because the more decimal places, the more the consumer rightly thinks, well, this might be difficult for me to find a setting to match it. Because they'll get, this happens all the time where, somebody will buy a 7 by 9 oval stone on Etsy, and the same day they'll buy a ring with a 7 by 9 setting, and they'll get them both in at the same time, and then they'll try to think, and it won't fit, and they'll be like, "Hey, your ring is wrong." It's like, get one of these and measure your stone and get back to me. And 9 times out of 10 is like, oh yeah, the stone is not exactly the size, because stone sellers don't care. They just want to get rid of their stones. So they'll put it up to a ruler and say, well, it's about 7 by 9, it's about 6 by 8, it's about whatever the dimensions are. Sometimes you'll see super accurate dimensions. It's rare though, and natural stones are the worst. Lab stones are almost always super accurate, like super accurate, which is nice. Which is weird because they still have to cut them the same way. It's not like the machine grows them in that shape, right? They're just growing rough, and then they still got to be faceted. Anyway, neither here nor there. Right. So that's your most important tool for jewelry making, for this kind of thing. If you're going to be buying settings and stones and then reselling them. Which is a good thing. We have quite a few customers who all they do all day long is buy stones and buy settings. Spend 5 minutes, put them together. If they're simple prong setting, it's just boop, 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 and you're done, right? And then list it for double what they paid for everything, and they're doing great business. I think I'm not going to say who, because maybe they don't want people to know that they're buying the settings from us, I guess, because then you could just buy the settings from us directly. So, but trust me, we have a couple of customers who make great money doing that, and that's all they do, just buying the stuff and reselling it. So it's definitely a viable business. I would say it's probably more viable than doing your own custom jewelry. I know that's a blow to everybody who makes jewelry's ego, but jewelry is a really difficult business to break into. I taught jewelry fabrication for 24 years, and in all the years, maybe this says more about me as an awful teacher than anything, but I can only name a handful of people who actually made enough money selling their own jewelry to do it as a business. So it's just a really, really rough business. And then the problem is that the time involved for most stuff. You get this weird dichotomy where beaded jewelry, right? You can buy like sapphires or rubies or black diamonds or whatever and make these exquisite necklaces, but to people it's just beads. And you're never going to be able to get what it's worth. And for more hands-on, I get in trouble with the beaters now. Yes, beading your thing, but there's a lot more than just stringing the beads on the soft flex or tiger tail or whatever you're doing. Not tiger tail, but soft flex or beetle on or whatever you're using, right? But if you're doing jewelry fabrication where you're creating, these crazy silver pieces, with stones or whatever, especially if you're using, traditional fabrication techniques, you're never going to be able to get the amount of money out of it that commensurate with the time that you put into it, if that makes sense. Unless David Yurman. I just think of David Yurman. I always think of David Yurman when I think of that. The stuff, I haven't seen what his stuff is in, years, but, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, the stuff was very, simple, basic, very cool, chains and braids and, stuff like that. But, not amazing, but he was getting a premium for it because I don't know why. It's like an ego thing. It's like, if you believe that this thing that I, spent a couple hours on is worth, $4,000, then, and you put it on for sale and somebody buys it, then that's how much it's worth, right? So I guess it's a thing. If you if you put a price tag on it, people will buy it. Not to take away from David Yurman's, because the stuff is amazing, right? Or well made, or it was when he was making stuff. I imagine he doesn't actually make a lot of his stuff anymore. He probably hasn't made, or hasn't in a while. Anyway, neither here nor there. So, yeah. I don't know, I feel like I'm rambling now. I'm just making up stuff, filling time. How much time have I been on? 35 minutes. This is more than enough. If you have any other questions, feel free to link wherever. If you're on Facebook, if you're watching this Facebook, or if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, don't leave a comment, because I'll be perfectly honest, I never read them. I can't ever go back and watch the videos where I'm in, because I don't know, it freaks me out. Something. I don't like looking at myself on video, but anyway. But you can contact us. I guess if you put a question in there, somebody will read it and say, "Hey, Mark, somebody has a question." But you can send, contact us anywhere. Just click any of the links, and you'll get a hold of us somehow. If you want to email me directly, my email address is mark at. You can also send your questions, and we can address them. And another, we can do another Ask Me Anything. In a couple of months, who knows? Good idea. Anyway, my email address is mark@canadafindings.com, FINDINGS.com. And we will, I guess, I don't have anything else to say. We will see you next week, where we're doing, I think I was doing stone scanning. That's going to be fun. I like that. It's a fun thing. I will show you some cool things that things maybe you didn't realize about stones that become super obvious when you're scanning them. That's a lot really fun. Anyway, in the meantime, take care of yourself, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, and we will see you next week. All right, take care. Bye-bye. Finish.